So I want to talk about interpreting dreams. One of the reasons that I write down my dreams every day is because the meaning emerges as I'm writing them down. I used to not bother writing down dreams. If a dream was really interesting or funny, then I would type it out, but most of the dreams didn't make the cut because they're not that interesting. But once I started writing them out in longhand with my Apple Pencil, I started writing them no matter how boring they were. The most boring, mundane dream, I will still write it down. And the interesting thing is that no matter how boring it is, sometimes when I'm writing it down, the meaning emerges. So I have no idea what the dream means, but then as I'm writing it out, I understand what the dream means. So you can find all these dream interpretation books, and personally, I think they're bullshit. So like we might have some collective imagery that we all share, like some collective archetypes and symbolism that we all share. Some of it could be true, but I think it's more important to analyze your dreams based on your own personal mythology and the feeling that the dream evokes. I mean, there's different ways to interpret a dream. You can look at it through the lens of, I am everyone in this dream. So there's a bunch of characters in the dream, and there's this theory that you are actually every one of those characters, so you can look at it through that lens. And when it comes to other things, objects and just other narratives, I think it's important to just ask yourself what it feels like to you. Because like in a dream interpretation book, they'll say, well, if you lose your purse in a dream, then that means you've lost your identity. So maybe, but I don't think it always means that to every person, because it's more important, this object, the purse, if you lose it, how did it feel when you lost it? What did the purse feel like to you? Because I think it's way more individual than what you can just put in a dictionary. So like the other day, I had a fairly boring dream. I was in a high school scenario and there was a locker, and I opened the locker and it was just so chaotic and full of crap. I had like 15 unopened packages of pins and several notebooks, and there was also the book The Artist's Way was in my locker, but really just like a bunch of random crap. If you think about it, you don't need 15 packs of pins in order to successfully get through the school day. You need like one or two good working pins. You need at least one, and then maybe that one fails or runs out of ink and you need a backup pin. But you know, you're good if you have two good pins, or maybe three. Maybe a classmate forgot to bring their pen and you want to loan it out just to be nice, but you don't need 15 packs. So there's all this stuff in my locker, and I realized that I needed to organize it, and it felt really overwhelming, just the task, the process of organizing it. And there was also this feeling that the reason I had so many pins in my locker was because I thought that's what it meant to be prepared and to be organized, to have a whole lot of pins and a whole lot of notebooks. That means I'm a really organized, prepared person. But gathering is not the same thing as organizing. And if you gather too much, then at some point it becomes counterproductive, because you gather so much stuff that you're just collecting chaos. Then you have a really chaotic situation. I do that very much so in my life. I have this tendency to overgather, and I call it being prepared. I even call it being an organized person, but it's not. It's just creating a lot of clutter and chaos, and I'm not getting my work done, and I'm not getting through the school day very efficiently because I have too much shit. And there was also that book, The Artist's Way, which is a book that I read 30 years ago, maybe. Don't remember a whole bunch about it, but it is about the creative process. I think that this tendency of overgathering really shows up in all of my creative endeavors, all of my creative projects. Gathering too much, not organizing enough, not actually getting projects done because I'm too busy overgathering. So I went on Audible and I got The Artist's Way because I thought, well, maybe I'll read that. Maybe there's something in there I need to know. And it is a pretty important book for creative people to read. Most creative people read that book at least once. And of course I did read it once, but it was so long ago I don't remember it at all. I thought, yeah, I'll reread that because, I love to gather. So just gather in more information. So in that dream, I was really interpreting it through what I know and understand and how it felt to me. If I just wrote down the dream, what happened without my feelings, and asked someone else to interpret it, they would come up with a completely different interpretation, because there are key ingredients that you need to know in order to interpret it. The fact that having all this stuff felt like I was being responsible, felt like I was preparing, but I was really just causing chaos for myself. That feeling is the key to understanding the dream. So another dream I had recently, I got invited to something really last minute, and the person who was organizing it was a very extroverted, organizing type person, and it was really last minute, and I kind of didn't want to go, but I thought, oh, I should, every once in a while you have to say yes to invitations, even if it is at the last minute. So I went to this thing, and then it just didn't really feel right. It felt chaotic, it felt last minute, it felt too extroverted. And I went over to this quiet corner where there was this other super extroverted person. We were kind of commiserating about how we didn't really want to be there. And in the dream, it was actually his wife that organized the whole thing. So he was sort of bitching and moaning about how she's always planning these last minute things and like he can't take it anymore. The extroversion is too much for him. And then at some point, somebody at the party had a baby and we were looking after the baby. We were off in this quiet corner being introverted and bitching and moaning about being in situations where we needed to be extroverted, and we were like taking care of this baby, and we were going to leave that closet that we were hanging out in. And so I glanced over my shoulder and looked back at him, and I said, oh, hey, do you have the baby? And it wasn't until I was writing out the dream that I realized the baby is the extroversion. Like, oh, do you have the baby? I don't want to be responsible for the baby, but we're both like trying to take care of this baby. It was like we were both novices, like not so good at taking care of babies. But in this situation, this baby was sort of thrusted upon us and it was under our care, and we were both sort of like working together to keep an eye on this baby and make sure the baby didn't die. And only I could know that the baby represented extroversion or play energy. Some random person interpreting the dream would not know that. You would never find that in a dream dictionary. So you just have to really pay attention and ask yourself certain questions, like, who does the guy represent? Who's me in the dream? Am I me but also the other guy? Am I me but also the woman who planned the party? You have to like ask those questions and try them on and see what feels right. Like, what's up with this baby? What does the baby feel like? What does the baby remind me of? You really discover that by slowing down and writing it out longhand. And that's why I do it, even though it's really tedious and time consuming. But it's become one of my favorite things that I do every morning. And it does take a long time. Sometimes I remember like 4 dreams in a night, and some of them are very detailed. And so sometimes I can be writing out my dreams for an hour. But I never just skip it. I think that I truly enjoy doing this because I tend to look forward to it, and I've been doing it for several years now.